Pilots, what is your least favorite airport? LaGuardia, hands down. Just a complete pain from 18,000 feet until you're at the gate. Unfortunately, it doesn't stop there. The airport is packed. The food sucks and it's insanely expensive. There's people everywhere. It's sold. Leaving? After 4 MD-88s you're cleared to push to spot 29 where you'll call ground 7 times unanswered and then be number 37 for takeoff after convoluted taxi instructions that include several 2-letter taxiways and multiple hold short instructions. Also, don't forget to call clearance with your PDC code and get stepped on multiple times. At least when you leave you have checking in with Washington Center to look forward to. It's almost amusing how much everyone loathes that airport. Nobody wants to be there. Passengers, pilots, employees. Jig along in outback Western Australia. Too many rocks. Georgetown Airport, known as E36 on us pilot maps, located in Northern California. This is why I dislike it so much. 1. It's on a mountain. 2. One end of the runway ends on a cliff. 3. The other ends 10 featuring from some trees. 4. The runway has an incline. 5. The runway is narrow, bumpy, and a bit short. 6. It's in the middle of nowhere, and almost completely deserted if you frick up. It's not the worst airport in the world, but it's not great either. Charleston WVA. The end is on a mountain, so you get to do a 180 on the edge. I can emotionally accept a crash landing. I have real trouble with a crash after landing. It's really freaky as a passenger too, since you can't see the airport until you land. It feels like you're flying right into the side of a mountain. Combine that with the fact I was usually on some 10-seat puddle jumper and it doesn't make a great experience. Huge props to the EasyJet pilot who got us on the ground at London Gatwick last night, on the second attempt, despite terrifying crosswinds. I'm not a nervous flyer, but when we were 15 feet from the runway, only for the engines to roar and the plane to climb steeply back into the air, I was definitely feeling pretty tense. The wind was horrible and the rain was driving, and on our second approach, the wings were definitely tilting, but he got us safely and smoothly on the ground. Thanks man, you're a legend. LaGuardia is 100% the worst. There is a reason us pilots refer to it as La Garbage. That miserable, always delayed, overcrowded shithole fills me with such hatred it's unbelievable. Oh, it's your go home day? Well guess what? One drop of rain just fell in Nick so you're gonna have to eat this 5 hours delay buddy. Have a nice day. Goddamn I hate that place. I hear some guys would rather land in the Hudson than reroute to LaGuardia. Airline captain here. LaGuardia, short runways and crazy congested. You're close to other airplanes and the ramp area is tight. Chicago is a ridiculous long taxi experience. In Nick JFK is better than EWR because there are more runway choices and it's slightly more spread out. Nick airports are ran at 100% capacity so when weather rolls in or they swap runways it's a huge ripple effect that is painful when you want your day to be over. Odd taxiing feels like it lasts 5 years from a passenger's perspective, and even longer when you have to sit on the plane for an additional hour after boarding because random lightning suddenly appeared over the lake a few minutes after boarding finished. That was the worst. Actual pilot here. I'm going to say Newark and LaGuardia. Someone farting in the wind could cause 2 hours delays up there. But in all seriousness with the congested airspace of EWR, LGA and JFK any weather in the northeast can cause some serious delays. Even though it's my home airport, LAX is a pain in the butt. The whole airport has been a construction zone for as long as I can remember, with no end in sight. I recently just sat next to an off-duty pilot on a flight. He told me his regular route was LA to Hong Kong and back. He said he would always do what he could to avoid having to land in Russia or China, and would opt, if he has the choice, to land in either Alaska or Japan. ATP here. I'm surprised no one has said Charlotte NC. Congested and massive taxi delays for no reason other than a crappy layout and incompetence on the part of ramp controllers. Yeah, but from a passenger standpoint, the terminal is great with lots of restaurants and easy to get around in. I fly, pilot, into one of the reliever airports and avoid KCLT like the plague. I will say though transiting the area at low levels is a nightmare, so flying intrastate, NC, is never direct. helicopter pilot here. What's this runway you speak of? Like at a fashion show for pretty ladies? Also, Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt is the worst airport in the world. Inshallah is not an appropriate landing clearance. Tower clears you to land if God is willing. That's some good stuff right there. I travel often for work and I have heard pilots hate John Wayne Airport and that it's dangerous to fly out of. Luckily that's my choice of airport. I was on a Southwest flight leaving John Wayne once and right when the engines cut, the flight attendant gets on the intercom and whispers be very, very quiet. We're flying over rich people. Makes me giggle every time I think about it. My father is a pilot and thoroughly dislikes London City Airport. London City is great as a passenger, but I can imagine it being crappy for a pilot. Gets city pride that nobody is mentioning O'Hare or Midway. An aircraft carrier. Yes, it's very difficult to land an aircraft carrier on a pilot. The deck of the USS Theodore Roosevelt, CVN 71, at night with 10-foot seas. Mother fricking Kona, Hawaii. So much plane traffic that they frick over us choppers and make us hover for ages waiting for takeoff. We could depart from the ramp easily but nope. Hold. Terminal experience is also freaking miserable here. This airport is undeniably bad. Actual pilot. Toronto Pearson International. Yes, this airport is massive. But the second it gets windy or they get a of snow, the whole place goes to crap. Cancellations and delays everywhere. 2 days ago, 200 flights cancelled for a bit of wind. Last week we landed 5 hours late because of some snow. When we landed, I counted at least 20 planes sitting around waiting for gates. Apparently some had been waiting for 2+ hours. Not to mention the landing fees are insane. To be fair, it was a crap ton of snow. I landed in Quito, Ecuador once. It took 3 attempts because of 4 and the crazy location. Fuking Teterboro, NJ. Doesn't help that I have to go there at least twice every trip I'm on. Was hoping to hear about Tegucigalpa, Honduras. When flying in out of Tegucigalpa, it's best to be seated at the aisle. You really don't want to look out the window while taking off or landing. Especially landing and landing. You may see the ground crew removing treetops from the landing gear. Disclaimer, I'm no pilot, but I did crap my pants once when landing at Tegucigalpa. Nassau, heavy crosswinds, FOD, and really crappy controllers. Not me, but my dad said that the Juan Shoei, Irosquin Airport in Sabah, Sab TNCS, had the shortest runway he had ever seen with a cliff at both ends of it, so that doesn't sound fun. Before it was decommissioned, Kai Tak Airport was the most dangerous large airport in the world to land at because it was basically in the heart of Hong Kong. It required specialized training. Pilots had to take a course to be allowed to land there. But dang, it made for some cool views from the ground, or at least that I've seen from YT. I'm surprised Newark isn't more hated. On certain days you can sit in the IKEA across the street and count 10+ planes in line to land. LaGuardia beats that. The landing requires a sharp hook at low altitude after crossing by Manhattan. Then you deal with a short runway. Aspen kinda sucks, especially when the weather goes down. Sure, it's pretty, but it can be a pain in the butt. Glad you asked. I'm tired of my home base airport and need to vent it out. Mexico City's airport sucks in every way imaginable. The parallel runways, which are the only ones, aren't separated enough to allow simultaneous approaches and departures. So aircraft from both terminals have to take off from the same runway and land on the other one, causing huge ground delays. It's common to spend 1 hour or more taxiing. The place is too freaking crowded. They only built 74 gates. We use about 110, how 30+ remote stands. Some are really far from the terminals. Again, it's not uncommon for the airport buses to arrive 30 or 40 minutes after you've parked. And if we're in transit, then wait 40 more minutes for the fuel truck to arrive to your stand. The entire terminal smells like crap for some reason and the public restrooms have no ventilation, increasing the crap smell. This really irks me, because it's a terrible welcome for foreign people who might get a bad idea about our country, the president, and all official aviation including the Navy, sometimes the Army, diplomatic flights, state visits etc. Don't use the dang army's airport, which is a few minutes away from the city. They use our airport and get priority for taxiing, takeoff and landing. So again, not unusual to be delayed 30 minutes just because the president is swinging by. On top of the small annoyances, it's not an easy operation by any means. High altitude airport, mountainous terrain all around, in-flight delays by long but flight vectors and holding patterns due to traffic saturation, really bad weather every day from May to September, volcanic ash from the Popocatépetl all year round, frequent awful wind shear conditions causing you to go around the airport on fast 5 because it's so long and dangerous to go on. LaGuardia. She's an evil bee. Heavy winds from the west are stirred up by downtown and make for some interesting landings. Ground control gets so saturated that sometimes it takes 10 minutes just to get your name in the hat to taxi out. And then you might be number 45 in line for departure. For every minute of listening to LGA ground, your actual age increases at a ratio times pi. The old terminals are truly third world. You feel like a refugee when you try and shove your way through the huddled masses. There's one men's room on the B concourse serving 1,000 people. The terminals are kept at 85 degrees, summer and winter. All the good food is outside of security, so you have to exit and then re-enter to get a halfway decent bite to eat. Trump 757 haunts the landscape, and so you're stuck looking at it for hours on the taxi out to depart RWY13. On departure there are no fewer than 4 different procedures to follow depending on which couple of 100 feet you lose an engine after takeoff, which seem to have been designed mostly for noise abatement instead of, safety. Traffic is thick, runways aren't very long, and if you land long you splash down in cold salt water. Any airport with that crushable foam emergency stopping concrete at the end of the runway isn't really operating within its original design limits. I hate LGA. Clearly most people here have not been to MEX, the biggest dumpster and complicated airport in the world. Some stats. First, it's at 7,500 feet, 2,400 m above sea level, so approaches are a lot faster than other airports. Surrounded by mountains and requires a precise approach with a 130-degree turn to align with the runways. You overfly a huge and populated city, so no Sully stunts are possible here. The airport dates from the 1940s and has been under construction since, and it's a Frankenstein. It's overpopulated and understaffed. A huge dumpster was constructed very far away in the 50s and now it's near, so in a bad day it smells. The runways are lengthy but are very narrow and so close that operations are complicated. Taxiways are so small that the A380 need a guy in a car to guide it to the gate. Congestion is bad that sometimes aircraft wait 40 minutes just to get a gate. Buy bottled water. Traffic to get there in or out is a nightmare, and to top it off they are making a new super modern one just outside this dumpster. I'm not a pilot, but I'm told by pilots I know that if you can land in St. John's International in Newfoundland, you can land anywhere. Washington Dulles Airport. I'll answer because I'm a pilot. You never specified ATP or even commercial. I'm going with 3LF in Litchfield, IL. The winds were very freaky on my short final. I randomly dropped altitude, and I about shat my pants. Every airport has weird little idiosyncrasies like that, but this resulted in a go around as my approach was no longer stabilized. When I came back around, it was fine because I was ready for that weird shift, and I had a smooth landing. The FBO terminal was nice, ate their candy, took a giant dump. They have a crew car and internet access to check weather. Once it cleared in southern Missouri I was off. Montreal. The controllers can't handle more than 2 airplanes at once, and they speak French to the locals so you can't tell what's going on. Also Newark because GDP. Try our aviation if you want an actual answer. Lol, try our flying if you want an actual answer. Aviation is more for enthusiasts, but our flying is full of actual pilots who flare their ratings. 99% non-pilots and 1% American pilots talking about airports I've never heard of. I'm a pilot in the US. I'd say Reno, Sun Valley, Idaho, Jackson Hole and Aspen. I don't actually fly into the last one. The reason I don't like them is terrain. When you lose an engine during takeoff and you're too fast to safety abort on the runway, you have to continue into the air. At this point your climb performance is limited and you have to conduct complex single engine departure procedures that in some cases like Sun Valley on a single engine balked landing into runway 31 do not guarantee terrain clearance. That's never a good feeling. Busy airports don't bother me, the ones surrounded by tall mountains do. Nearly all airports guarantee terrain clearance. It is the single engine balk landing in Sun Valley that does not. You have been visited by the romantic doggo. Comment love is magic so you never fall in the friend zone. Like and subscribe you magnificent person.